I'd much rather see a film which pushes the boundaries and takes risks, because even if it doesn't completely work, such a film is likely to liberate and illuminate me, said Anna Kannava in her artist statement, 2004, innocence.com. Welcome everybody to this special World Cinema Now conference event that is intended to pay tribute to the filmmaker Anna Kannava, who sadly died in May this year. Despite and in spite of years of ill health, Anna managed to produce some quite extraordinary cinematic output, which did indeed push boundaries. And if her films are screened, may in fact liberate and illuminate many a film audience well into the future. And I quote from the flyer for the recent Anna Kannava retrospective, which is currently touring Australia and will hopefully return to Melbourne at the end of the year for those who missed it. There's a poster over there for that event. The Melbourne independent filmmaker, artist and writer Anna Kannava died on the 5th of May 2011 at 51 years of age. Anna was born in Cyprus in 1959 and migrated to Australia in 1974. Throughout her life and work, she kept a binding physical, cultural and creative connection to her homeland. Anna completed a number of highly personal and poetic films, including the 2 feature films Dreams for Life in 2005 and Kissing Paris in 2009, along with the acclaimed documentaries The Butler in 1997 and 10 Years After, 10 Years Older in 1986. For all who knew her or knew of her work, she touched the earth gracefully and with a self-assured European aesthetic and a passion for literary and visual beauty, leaving a conspicuous mark on both the Australian and European cinematic landscapes. Today, Graeme will present Anna's first 2 films, Kannava, and The Wedding of Venus, in their entirety, and 2 clips from 10 Years After, 10 Years Older. These were her first films. The first 2 were student films at Rusden, where Graeme was one of her teachers. There are some others of her Rusden teachers in the audience tonight, so I hope that this will make them feel great and celebrate. This will be followed by some of my own thoughts on some of Anna's techniques and styles, but I'll be concentrating on her last feature film, Kissing Paris. I would have loved to have covered all her films, but there just isn't time tonight. And finally, Bill Mousoulis will then present his contribution to the tribute. He has very much to say about Anna. He has worked with her often and knew her very well. Finally, if time permits, I'd like to screen Anna's film Vanilla Essence, just because I think it's a wonderful, joyful, optimistic work, and certainly with some profound under and overtones across socio-cultural issues such as migration, feminism, the female, industrial politics, as well as a certain cinematic integrity. Its form is like a comic book come to life with reference and homage to some of the world's great cinema. And it is a film that is above all witty and very entertaining. As Anna says of her own films, and I quote, "Sometimes I think my style is a combination of silence and slapstick from the silent era, experimentation from countless hours of experimental film screenings, and atmosphere from the Europeans. And the voiceover just comes to me. I have no control over it." That's an artist statement, May 2004, innocence.com, once again. Now, it's almost as if she is in the zone of stream of consciousness, auto-suggestion, playing a game of highly stylised random selection, while in total cinematic control. On that note, I'd like to introduce Graeme Katz.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The film Kannava is Anna's first film as a student at Rusden State College, goodness me. Listed on the retrospective flyer as 1980 experimental documentary, it was shot on 16mm film with a soundtrack that transcends its humble, jumbled technical origins. It's a self-portrait. Here I am. This is what you get. A woman is a woman is a woman. Daydreams, how real can you make them? Night dreams, I don't know. Learning to be a female, a woman, a human being, ever searching for identity, belonging, and meaning in life. This theme grows and matures to permeate her entire opus. A curious contrapuntal melody of image and sound. Poetry develops and becomes more subtle and profound with each film. The journey theme appears, walking, trumpeting. I have travelled and I will travel. And this theme becomes more and more dominant through her films and takes us finally to Paris. Where would you have gone then, Anna? Isn't it beautiful? Makes my heart weep. The Wedding of Venus, 1981, experimental short. An exploration, perhaps a tentative befriending of surrealist and experimental film. A simple narrative, saturated with dreamlike states, lingering to explore real life in all its fantasy. Here are echoes of Germain Dulac's film, The Seashell and the Clergyman, with an Antonin Artaud acolyte officiating. And also Louis Buñuel's Un Chien de Loup, with a door handle instead of ants, peeping through a circular aperture rather than a keyhole. She watched films avidly and incessantly. Hand-coloured and sometimes scratched frames vibrate on the screen. Blood-red washes and wipes follow action. Academy leader punctuates the flow, and the flux punctuates the Academy leader. And Anna is not scared of silence. Telling the story of the Wedding of Venus introduces the classical mythology that Anna has travelled from and returns to finally in Paris. The wedding theme as a narrative and filmic device foreshadows Anna's own personal concerns of love, marriage and relationships that are pursued in a documentary 10 years later, 10 years older. This is the forerunner of both of her later feature films. I bet you can't do that on Digicam. 10 years after, 10 years older. A very moving, meditative, mature film essay which brings together the main concerns of migratory travel, family, relationships, longing and belonging, love and marriage, and the continuum of life's journey, all of which are further refined in the later personal documentary, The Butler. And Anna, what did you know then? She makes a reference to that in one of the clips. The clip consists of the first couple of minutes and the last couple of minutes. Enjoy.
Thanks, Graeme, that I've got my voice back. The short film, Tightrope Water, continued Anna's foray into the experimental after which she seemed to have made a decision to alter her cinematic direction for more organised narrative content in both documentary and fictional films. Her better-known films, The Butler and Dreams for Life, are no longer tentative searching. They reflect a focused confidence, a growing mastery of the medium. Anna's films contain obvious devices that appear and reappear throughout her work, not the least of which is the haunting rhythmic use of voiceover. Her own almost childlike intonations in her documentaries develop into the voices of the protagonists in her later features. This technique, which she often uses for explication and advancing the story, becomes a musical instrument, a sound element, amongst others, to enhance atmosphere and to set the parameters of the particular aesthetic. Anna uses experimental tropes as a normal part of the action. She readily mixes fixed and handheld camera shots for both natural order and intentional disruption. Formal artworks go hand in hand with purpose-designed graphics to alter the dimensions of reality, often using animation to build other layers into the action. There are recurring themes in her films, besides the wonderful family stories, the belonging, the travelling, the love lost and found. There are ongoing portraits of Melbourne. There are others which include miniature essays on systems of transport, trains, trams, freeways, even the airport, the means of travel and migration, of departure, of arrival. Her cat appears in both documentary and fiction films, making a palpable connection across time and reality, both inside and outside the frame. Is it doing? There were so many possibilities to choose from with Anna's work, but I decided to concentrate mainly on her final major feature film, Kissing Paris, which I fell in love with when I first saw it. I've watched it numerous times and still love it dearly. Probably for you, Frederica. You told me some good things about it.
In my class today, I gave them the theme of passion to write it out. And there was this one story set in the old days about a man besotted with this woman, until one day he finally gets to kiss her. And he realises that the kiss is not as intoxicating as he thought it would be, and that his life is bound to the ordinary. So he leaves her and goes to these far exotic places. Such an amazing story.
From the first moments of Kissing Paris, we know we have entered a rarefied, though curiously familiar world. Anna delivers us into the realms of place, placement and displacement, a sense of jumping the time-space continuum. letters appear in most of her films. We are being led somewhere. We think we know already, but that we are yet to discover. Our memories and dreams are being challenged.
I was trying to pretend I was in control of myself, while my whole being shuddered. I felt such charge of excitement that day that I never felt before. Every cell of my body opened up like a tree before the rain, ready to absorb every detail of you. I became a traveler, starving for new adventures that were only you. There was something about it. I don't know what it was, but it all made sense. Paris was the world, and I was where I had to be at that precise moment. So I kissed you.
I'm not catching a plane, not catching a plane, not catching a plane today. One empty seat is flying further away. Just letting you know that I've decided to stay. Time isn't spent, and there's music to play.
Anna's use of music is one of the strongest elements of her work. It matches the visual as an equal, suggesting and binding and enabling the movement of the images and other ambient sounds. She borrows from many sources and styles. In the coming examples, from Debussy to match the French connection. Music, sound, image, all allow the mood to change. Counterpointing its sonic and visual opposite, tempering and altering the otherwise logical effect.
seul.
My love for film stems from my love for all arts. Filmmaking comes the closest to incorporating all of the arts together. If the actors are not moving, then the camera does, or just the fact that film consists of jumping from frame to frame, from shot, to me is a dance. There is the rhythm of the shots and flow of the film from beginning to end, another dance, a piece of music. Then there are the colours, textures, patterns, shades and light in each shot and frame, like in a painting or a photograph. I love the power of sound, the word and the theatrical aspects of film. Perhaps I see myself as a collage artist. I try to mix and clash all the different elements and styles within the one film. Said Anna in her artist statement, May 2004, innocence.com. And finally, one of my favourite parts of this film, although it certainly isn't the end of the film.
Je regrette l'amour d'autrefois, ces jours heureux où je ne pensais qu'à toi, ni les ennuis, ni les oublis ne me feraient changer d'avis. Sous un ciel bleu, le cœur léger, mais dans la main, nous étions protégés, loin des amis, loin des soucis, inséparables dans tout Paris. Si demain je te retrouvais, je ne te quitterai plus jamais. Comment te chercher sans réveiller toute la douleur amère? L'amour d'autrefois, ces jours heureux où je ne pensais qu'à toi, ni les ennuis, ni les oublis ne me feraient changer d'avis. Si demain je te retrouvais, je ne te quitterai plus jamais. Comment dire sans retracer tous les souvenirs d'hier? Où est l'amour d'autrefois?
Le secrétaire est stupid.
We all like to think we've been there and done that. A wonderful video clip in its own right. Now, over to Bill.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm just going to talk a little bit about Anna as a filmmaker, her kind of processes when she was making her films. I think the first thing that can be said is basically that her filmmaking practice was infused with her spirit. Her spirit was incredible. For those, I think there's a number of people in the room here who knew her. She was very confident. She was, I mean, for many people, she was actually very outspoken. She didn't really care about etiquettes and graces and being polite. So if she had something on her mind, she would pretty much say it. And I guess a number of you who knew her also know that she had a serious illness, a terminal illness called scleroderma, which kind of means tightening of the skin, and that's why she went very gaunt in her final years. And I think her spirit that she had was there from the very start, when she was 18, 19 years old at Rusden. And the disease which she contracted was limiting, but it was an obstacle that she overcame very easily, I think. Maybe it kind of drove her on a bit more, and I think it did towards the end with Kissing Paris and the difficulties of that shoot. When she started, as a kid, as a small girl, she actually wanted to be a dancer or an actress or something like that. And then what happened, of course, they migrated to Australia when she was 15. And she started seeing some films, so she had this kind of cinephilic kind of impulse or growth that happened for her when she was about 18. And as Kate mentioned before, there's a combination of things there: experimental cinema that Graeme would show at Rusden. She loved certain European art house films like Fellini and Bergman. She'd see a bit of that. And she'd also love silent cinema. You'll see from Vanilla Essence when we play it at the end. It has a kind of Charlie Chaplin quality to it. So I guess the only other thing I'd like to say just in this introductory bit is that even though she studied at university level, she was never really academic or intellectual in her approach as a person as she progressed. She was very intuitive. She kind of knew what she wanted to do almost from the beginning and changed styles as it went along. I just want to show you a clip from The Butler. The Butler was made in 1996-97, so it comes about 10 years after. And in this film, well, actually, let's just see this first clip if you can hit it, Kate, just to give you an example of what she looks like and how she holds the camera. I think you can see from that little glimpse that she was, you can't tell fully, but she was a small person and quite frail. And the disease which affected, it's like an arthritic disease. So she was holding that, it's a bulky camcorder, I know, but she's still holding it like a little bit tentatively. So it's quite amazing in the end when she was making Kissing Paris that she could actually hold a camera and film, because her thumb had melded with her kind of fingers, I call it forefinger or index finger, whichever one's called. And she was kind of a bit like this, but she still made her films, which was terrific. The good thing at Rusden, she met a few people like Brian McKenzie, who's here tonight, Ray Argall, and then through that met Daniel Scharf, producer, and John Crothers, another producer. So she had great help when she was making her films all along her career when she was getting the funding for the films. The Butler, this film, was produced by John Crothers. And let's just have another clip from The Butler so we can kind of see what's in it. It's basically about her brother. This is her brother, Nino.
Yes, have a good weekend. 35049.
49345. boss.
160, 290, and I've got it to this 410.
Monday.
All right. 140.
So what happened with her, as was outlined by Graeme before, there were a couple of experimental films. I mean, she really almost could have gone on a different path as a filmmaker and not explored her own kind of heritage and situation, personal situation. But what she did was, with 10 Years After and also The Butler, she did explore her the things that she knew very well, her personal life. And in The Butler, there's a whole big section on her illness as well, for example. So it's kind of like, as a filmmaker, apart from that early beginning with the experimental films, she decided to, she really wanted to express herself, and in the expression of her life and situation, there is, of course, a catharsis, or however you want to kind of name it. I think what happens with the two fiction feature films later is that they're also very personal, but in an indirect way, because they are fictional kind of stories. There is some slight autobiographical things in those features. I want to show you now a clip from, don't press it yet, from Blue Notes. Blue Notes is a film that I made. I'm a filmmaker as well. I made it in 2005, so it's only about 5-6 years old now. And it consists of 5 different stories in the feature. One of them was written by Anna and actually stars Nino, her brother, in a kind of follow-up, in a way, to The Butler. So this is kind of like, it was another chance for Anna to feature her brother, this time in a role and in a film that's half fiction, half documentary. So we'll just press this, Blue Notes. The people you see at the end there, they're like a Greek choir, so it's basically the story of a lonely man, as it were, who discovers a connection with some people through that. Anna wrote the script for that, but she pretty much let me film the film how I wanted. When I showed her a rough cut, she was a little perturbed, a little disappointed. But then I explained to her a couple of new scenes that were written in, and then she looked at it again and changed her mind. Anna is someone who didn't change her mind very often, very stubborn in her beliefs and everything. But I think she understood that I was a filmmaker in my own right with my own vision, and it was valid, and yes, there were good things there. Around about the same time, before I mention that, just Anna's relationship to the conventions of cinema is really interesting. She's the last person on earth who would talk about, 3-act structures and other, such conventions when, writing a script or filming a script. But she really knew what she wanted, and those classic words, what works, that you hear people say. Even she herself would say that, this works and that doesn't work. But she had her own logic to it, and sometimes actually matching the conventions and sometimes not. So she had this fluidity between like experimentation and the conventions, and in the end pretty much did what she wanted to. At the same time, in 2005, or starting from late 2004, I worked with her to kind of make a feature film that she was the writer of, and I was to direct the film. It was called Sexy Guy, which is a bit of a clunky, kind of silly title, but the protagonist's name was Guy. And the interesting thing about that script actually is that the protagonist is a male, and if we know from her features, Dreams for Life and Kissing Paris, that they're females, and it's a portrait of the male psychology, which is really interesting because the guy's a womanizer, but he's impotent. He's like an alcoholic, but still very confident with everything. In the end, we went for funding with John Crothers as producer, and we didn't quite get the funding to make the film. But it was an interesting experience for me because Anna was very headstrong, and I've got my own kind of beliefs to do with cinema. We'll just play a little bit of a clip now from her first feature. So after the documentaries in the 80s and 90s, she made Dreams for Life. And Dreams for Life is from about 03, 04, completed in 05. And it's a story of a woman grappling with various things. Let's just see a little clip from it.
You must be the beautiful Ellen.
Who are you?
Mum. And Mum.
Baby Martin.
I was grown up a bit.
How did you recognise me?
I've got your photograph on my wall. It came with the bungalow when I inherited it from my brother, so I kept it.
That's amazing. Of course, what, you're 22 now?
24, nearly. Do you still dance?
You weren't even 2 when we moved out.
I saw you once when I was older.
Well, it's great seeing you.
You were visiting my mum. Do you live nearby?
I think that clip is actually probably a good example of what I was saying before about what she was doing, being halfway between convention and experimenting. There are traces of autobiography in the films, but apart from that, it's still very personal. It is a kind of personal cinema. And the actress, Maria Mercedes, I'll just read out a few words of what she says about the film. Anna touched my life and gave me the greatest gift, her friendship and her treasure, Dreams for Life. An extraordinary woman, full of passion for life. Making dreams was the best experience of my entire life, as I had entered Anna's soul, and I was no longer acting but experiencing her vision. Our friendship was forged from the time we spent together, 6 years before we started shooting. We had similar parallels in life, and we spent many hours and years working together, talking, laughing, workshopping the script, all the while being cared for by her beloved butler, Nino, her brother. When we finally started work on the film, we knew each other extremely well and comfortable enough to disagree if we needed to, which resulted in fiery yelling matches. Not a common thing, but it did happen, but we loved each other nonetheless. The end result was The Precious Dreams, which was adored by those who had seen it. So obviously Maria, as an actress, she's mainly a singer, but she is also an actress. She obviously connected with Anna, and they produced a portrait, as you can see from that little clip, very stylised, but very human, which was Anna's. Anna had a touch that she could produce something just a little bit different. And I just want to go into Kissing Paris a bit now too. In one of the clips before that Kate played, there was an airport scene. I just want to play the airport scene in full, actually, so let's just hit that.
I'm not catching a plane, not catching a plane, not catching a plane today. One empty seat is flying further and further away. Just letting you know that I've decided to stay. Time isn't slowing down.
men is full of longing and passion. You know, everyone needs stab something.
We're running out of time a bit, so I'm just going to speed up a bit. She says about that scene, Natalie Vella, this is, the lead actress, shooting a scene that was going to happen live, documentary style, was always going to be difficult. I was actually leaving to travel to Paris one day ahead of Anna, and Anna wanted to film this as the airport scene. So that's actually Natalie walking through the doors in real life. She says there were a few problems. Anna filmed me actually leaving through the doors at customs, so there was no room for error. But before that, as they were in there shooting scenes of going up and back without actually entering customs, they had no security people questioning them at all or anything like that. Speaking generally, Natalie says, working with Anna was never going to be an easy experience, but I knew that from the start. She was a devoted filmmaker, a passionate artist, a dreamer who loved the beautiful details, from the pattern of a piece of fabric, the smell of a perfume, to the eccentricities of people's habits and expressions, and she brought that to her films. Kissing Paris was a unique film and a unique experience making it. There were no rules, at least not what I would call the standard rules when it came to filmmaking. Anna made films how she wanted to. Anna worked in a certain way, and Anna liked to be in control. There were no shot lists or script breakdowns or locations drafted out. It was all in her head, which made it a little bit hard as you didn't really know what was going on in the production process. All you could do was just go with the flow, put your head down and listen to her. Anna wanted to work with me because combined with my acting experience, I also had technical experience, including camera experience, which was perfect for what Anna wanted to achieve with this film. Anna warned me it would be demanding, etc., etc. Basically, it was a film made with very little money. Anna was actually inspired by my film Blue Notes that you saw. The film, I got a small grant from the Australian Film Commission of $20,000 through something called Strand X. And Anna was impressed with this, and so she asked for the $20,000 as well for a project, and she got it. But $20,000 is no money at all, of course, when you want to go overseas and shoot scenes there. Well, 3/4 of the film is shot in Paris. But so in the end, there was no crew, of course. Anna had to just kind of shoot all of it herself, pretty much. There was the occasional help from someone else. We'll just play the next clip, and I might actually just talk over it as well. But yeah, let's play it, Kate.
What's your favourite city?
It's very hard to choose. I like, for example, Venice. Venice is not a real city. Venice is like in a dream, like I'm dreaming. Very romantic. You have traveled to Venice?
No, but I want to one day.
I hope.
Where do you live?
Just outside Paris.
So she basically says, no, that's fine, Kate, yeah. We shot the metro scenes in August when Parisians were away on vacation.
Yes, my family's there too.
The scene between actor Remy and myself was almost a farce. We had planned the metro line and the most quiet line that would be perfect for it. What we didn't plan for was the harassment from one slightly aggressive individual who didn't like any camera on the platform of line 5. I found this scene difficult. It was on the fly, it was nerve-wracking, it was rather late in the evening, and the timing had to be damn good. On top of that, I had to set up the camera for Anna for a 2-shot, make sure the sound was set, switch on the camera, jump into the seat and perform the same with Remy. I also had to watch Anna to make sure she didn't fall over as the train rattled and swayed from side to side.
I change the train now.
I think for this next moment that's coming up,
What is your name?
this moment here, that moment there,
My name is Paris.
Natalie explains how they filmed that little bit of her saying, "What is your name?" I had to take the metro to the next stop, turn around and jump on the next metro back. Then hopefully the doors would open just in front of Anna and her camera. I would call out my line, "Where are you from?" or "What is your name?" Then run out the doors and chase the man. This could only be described as insane. And when I think back on it now, how we achieved that scene, I could only put it down to the tenacity of Anna and my willingness to not give up until we got what we wanted. Because we're running out of time, I'll just cut this short. Basically, after kissing Paris, Anna was a little troubled by the physical process, the energy-sapping nature of making films. She did have another film planned, of all things, a Bollywood film that she wanted to shoot in India. And she pursued this, but of course she kind of ran out of time. What we should do now is play Vanilla Essence. Kate introduced it before. I'll just say it's from 1989, and it's about 15 minutes long. So we'll have a little look at it, and then we'll just have some quick Q&A, some quick questions and answers afterwards. Thanks.
Just think that Anna Kannava was able to create with the simplest of equipment, the lowest budget and much goodwill and friendship from those who chose to work with her. A subtle and moving and beautiful, almost magical and definitely legendary, transformative cinema. The ordinary, the mundane, the quotidian metamorphose into higher planes of meaning and being. Allegory and metaphor become the standard as humans approach the mansions of the gods and are often rewarded for their efforts with a newfound sagacity and wisdom. Anna's stories are age-old. Her audiences should continue to be ever-present. Vale, Anna. Thank you.
We've got a little bit of time, I guess, for some questions, comments. If anyone wants to start.
I just want to say, and feel free to. There's still some drink and so on left at the back, so feel free to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, maybe just go out for a drink and come back. If we've got a bit of time, we can just come and talk a little bit. There are some people in the room who are very relevant to Anna's story. For one, we have her mother, Frederica, here. I don't know if you want to say anything, just quickly, Frederica, now, or ask a question to us. Obviously, Frederica knows Anna much better than we do.
No, what I was going to say is you know Anna very well. Whatever you said, you and Adrian, so true. So you got to know her so well.
Yeah.
Yes, even the stubbornness, even whatever you say.
It's all from your mother.
I'm determined, but I don't know if I'm that stubborn as Anna. Yeah, thank you very much. It was a lovely presentation. Thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you, Frederica. I don't know, we've got Brian McKenzie and Daniel Scharf. I don't know if you guys want to contribute something. Brian was actually the cinematographer of that film we just saw now, Vanilla Essence. I don't know, Brian, if you want to say anything about when you met her, your impressions of her, and when you were then working with her, what that was like.
No, I think you just covered it.
It's good coming from the horse's mouth.
Memory of that, my main memory of that film was the day we filmed in the cake shop, and Steve McDonald, I think, was helping me with the lighting, and we put the big. Can anyone hear? Yeah. We put the Blondie light, I think, too close to the fire extinguishing sort of wax operation, and so we released all the water, and the whole cake shop was flooded. It was a disaster. It was my main memory of that particular shoot.
Yeah. Daniel, do you want to say anything? Did you work with her? Did you produce anything? Or?
Oh, over the years, she used to ring up occasionally, and so gave me lots of advice and have chats. But and always, it was great to talk with her. But really and truly, the very first thing Kannava you can have was that's in my brain for forever, because we were working in the editing room putting it together, and I was looking over her shoulder and I laughed, and she'd often would say, "Oh, do you think this is any good?" And I said, "It's fantastic, just keep going, just do whatever you like." And her spirit sort of, from even then on, it was very unique, but great.
We have John Cumming here as well, who is from Deakin, Brisbane at the time, who worked with Anna on one of his films. I don't know if you want to tell your impressions.
Thank you. Again, I think I've sort of covered a lot what I could say. I suppose my memory was Anna and I taking the piss out of each other in the editing rooms when we do sort of 75-hour stints, I think. What else? And her voice, yeah. So the film that she helped me with was a film I was making around about the same time, Obsession, and I asked Anna to do the narration for that, which was it was great to be able to have her musical voice in that film. Yeah.
And yeah, she certainly had a voice, so that's for sure. Any questions from anyone here? Could be absolutely anything. Chris?
Was she particularly conscious of moving up and down in terms of style? Like you see in Vanilla Essence, there's this really great moment-to-moment switching of different moods. Like she's able to do it seamlessly within various sequences and stuff. And you see the same thing in all of her the clips that you showed there as well, particularly in Kissing Paris as well, with that great sequence, that journey to the airport with that very, very kind of internalised voiceover that makes you feel like you're in their head, and then moving out again once they get there. I mean, are these just things that you, having worked with her, that she sort of discovered along the way, or were they sort of conceptualised at all, or did they seem sort of completely spontaneous?
I'll just say something, but Graeme or Craig, you can say something too. I think from the very start, obviously with the short experimental films you see, she had a grounding almost in that kind of matrix of kind of different elements, of course strictly within experimental kind of form there. But later on, yes, she was amazing, and something like Kissing Paris has it a lot, of just switching from one thing to the other. With the voice over the music, and yeah, a lot of kind of cheesy, French songs that she found, but she melded them in amazingly well. You wouldn't think so, and because they were unknown songs, they were easy to get the rights for, and all that. Vanilla Essence, yeah, I think she had to make a film like that with her love of silent cinema, and the thing of going from one mood to the other. You noticed that too, Adrian, with Kissing Paris. That little note that you wrote for a magazine. Do you want to explain that scene? It's Natalie in the bedroom in her apartment.
Yeah. It's a scene in Kissing Paris with the wonderful Natalie Vella, and she's speaking down the phone back to Australia, and she's talking to a cat. Yeah, she's talking to a cat, and then there's a sudden cut, and she's crying. She's completely crying, completely lost to herself, and that moment was such a distillation for me of Anna's style, which really was mood jumps, the collage, that thing that was quoted by you, Kate, that she always thought of herself as a collage artist. I think that's very true. Also, I want to pick up on something you said, Bill, about how she didn't have an intellectual approach, and her relation to me was that, she would ask me, what films should I see? And I would say, I think you would really love the films of John Cassavetes. And I recommended to her that she should see Killing of a Chinese Bookie and Woman Under the Influence, and I thought she would really like these films. But of course her suspicion was her first thing, well, if you're into it, I'm not into it. You know, I know what I like, and it's not what you like.
Too intellectual.
That's right, yeah, too intellectual. But then when she actually went and saw the Cassavetes movies, double bill somewhere, she came back to me and she said, "Oh my God, I understood those films." They weren't anything. They weren't like impenetrable art movies at all. So yeah, she didn't like pretension. She didn't like, you know, obscure intellectual things. But she liked art that had an intellectual force as well as a form. And that's what we can say about her own work too. Yeah.
Kate, I don't know if you want to say something about that, or no?
I think we've all said enough, and I think Anna has provided us with enough for this evening, and hopefully will continue to do so for many years to come.
I hope so.
On that note,
All right. Thanks everyone for coming.
And please feel free to have whatever's left of the drinks. And so I just want to say this was part of the World Cinema Now conference at Monash University, and this is really our attempt to write Anna into cinema history, world cinema history.